The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now there are many. Because soon there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
All right, everyone. Welcome to the 16th episode of World Blockchain Roundtable. Hosts for today are Greg from Rivet, Larry Sanger, co-founder of Wikipedia, Sean, creator and entrepreneur, and Dave from Den.social, and me, Joe. I'm the architect of Dragonchain. Quick update on lot distribution from last week's episode. Based upon views, 2,000 lot will be created. Each host from last week will receive 333 lot. Each contributor of topics and questions will get 66 lot. Ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and future governance votes. It looks like Ross from Global Crypto Press has joined as well. Good timing. So let's get straight to the topics and refresh. Let's see here. Okay, first up. Hopefully everybody had a good week so far, right? Angel Breaker. Topic: AI bots who automatically delete inappropriate content versus censorship established by the AI creators or political forces or platform users. Failed bots would Microsoft's Tay as an example. So, by the way, the general topic this week was censorship. I'm horrible at intros, right? So who has something to say about the types of censorship that are at least currently going on?
Oh, well, it's such a broad topic.
Yeah.
Who wants to jump in first?
No, what's the question is what I'd like to know. They're bad.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, they're bad. And it's they have tried, in my opinion, they've tried to say that, oh, the AI bots are to basically pull away content that is supposedly obviously bad, right? But they're very much have been tuned for subjective political purposes, especially by like Facebook, Twitter. Well, Twitter is maybe a little more manual, but Facebook definitely is putting AI on everything. Anyway,
I think it have to be like with that. It's have to be something so simple, like profanity or something like that, or looking for pictures with nudity, and it would depend on the platform. If it's okay to cuss or if it's okay to show nipples, then there's not a lot that I think AI should be put in charge of when it comes to censorship.
Right.
Well, you don't need AI for the simple stuff like that.
Yeah, false positives are such a dangerous problem when it comes to automating moderation like that. I mean, yes, there are legitimate reasons why we don't want to have certain content appear in certain sites, but the day that we hand that challenge over to bots is the day that we start getting false positives at a rate that really might not be acceptable, and it could be in a situation where some particular piece of content or some speaker is saying something really important that we lose, and misunderstandings abound, and that could get lost for a really long time and really chill some speech. I think it's dangerous.
Agreed. I would say that the training data is really important, and what I'd love to see is businesses like Twitter and Facebook actually share what training data they use for their AI bots. That would be fun.
Yes, that would be amazing. And that's what
whenever can go a long way.
Yep. And whenever we've come up with someone asks us, well, how would you apply blockchain to AI? that is one of the things, and you know, outside of censorship, even that my opinion is people should be establishing their training data on chain so that if something comes up, they can actually go back and verify this really is the issue with this training data, and or if they get sued, they could show, well, here's the training data. It, you know, if it is really legitimate, you know, that they aren't trying to skew the results, it will be pretty obvious if it's on chain open source. Open source would even be better than what's going on right now. But yeah. And
but you're just assuming that they want the moderation to be neutral when they obviously don't. In fact, they're being pressured by their what they perceive as their main constituencies to be, if anything, more ideologically biased, not less.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the flip side of the AI on this is if you have either manual, young people sitting in ivory towers in Northern California, you have that group, or you have like in the case of Reddit or Twitter, that it becomes a pattern that if I see someone that I do not like their opinion, I can report them, and I can report them as abusive because I was offended. You know, I'm a special snowflake, and they said some word that has gotten me. So, and it's like, I don't have to follow them, right? For some reason, it'll get me so riled up that I'm going to report them, and then they get banned. And it's very one-sided, you know.
It is one-sided. That's one of the things that I wanted to say that scares me and that I don't like is that the burden is on the accused in these cases. Yeah. You know, you by default get turned off. You by default get your channel demonetized by an AI on YouTube, or you get your account blocked on Twitter or on Facebook. And it's on the accused to prove that, nope, that was an illegitimate block or ban or censorship.
Can you imagine how amazing it would be if somebody put in a complaint and they received an answer that was, it's our suggestion that you unfollow that person and don't look at that again. Instead of going after the the person that made the content, just turn around and say, hey, maybe just
It would be really cool to see would be something different for AI, like pluggable AI, where you can take some kind of intelligence and say, give me things that look like this, so you can sort of federate it. You might see people saying, yes, block everything that might be conceivably offensive, but you also might just see some really interesting things like show me content that's unusual that I wouldn't normally see. Could be something that people would do with it. A lot of power there, I think.
Yeah, there was a TED talk that it was one of the guys at Facebook, if I remember right, had given, and it was really funny to me because this was years ago, and he was talking about how their use of AI had gotten to the point where it would realize, the things that you liked versus the things you didn't, and that it would end up building these bubbles of echo chambers because you wouldn't see any of the comments from your friends that disagree with you politically, and your friends wouldn't see any of your comments. And that it was funny because they at least recognized it as a problem. But the interesting thing to me, and I've said this before on shows, that at the end, his conclusion was that they needed better AI. And I'm like, you just need a better marketplace, and you need to not have a, how do I say this? I mean, echo chambers are bad. And a lot, by the way, in the real world, a lot of the answers to Facebook and Twitter and big tech censorship have been to create echo chambers. You know, some of the conservative platforms, or at least they were targeting conservatives, ended up just being echo chambers. And frankly, that's not fun, right? I mean, it's always most fun to troll your friends who disagree with you politically. That's a very fun thing to do.
And I think that the like you're working against yourself too, because by creating an echo chamber, you're trying to silo something, but you're amplifying it at that point, right? You get this like self what's the term? It's like you're just more sure of yourself because everyone you hear agrees with you, basically.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I end up creating an echo chamber for myself, I'll admit. On Twitter, I basically ban anybody who gets on to basically unreasonably, what I think is unreasonably disrespect me, I just ban them, because life is too short. I mean, I don't want to use the medium to like spar with people who are just making stupid points.
Yeah.
The thing is, it isn't 100% an echo chamber. There's still a lot of people there who do disagree with me, but they do it in a way that's more polite, and there are a lot of people, they're just not that interested in politics too, which is important. So I mean, yeah, I describe things like Rumble and Getter and Gab and Parler and the rest of those as conservative ghettos, basically. They're just like little places, and I think things like, despite the fact that AWS actually deplatformed Parler, just for example, they still have to like that the conservatives are going there and getting off of the platforms. So I don't know.
That's what that is I think the worst part of it, that they want to not have opposing viewpoints on there, and whether it's the people who are reporting them, or if it's the people who run the big tech platforms, that's the most concerning thing, because it's like, to say, well, we want all opinions except for that opinion is a mess. It's bad, right? I mean, even the opinions that I completely disagree with, I think should be able to be aired, right? It's a typical free speech thing. So that's bizarre to me.
Well, I mean,
that's kind of the entire point of the internet. Is like, people can say whatever they want as long as the ability to reply is there. I'm all for free speech, and that's the whole point, is that without a marketplace of ideas where bad ideas get shot down in a very public and embarrassing way for the people presenting them, that means those bad ideas now have to find a little corner of the internet where they have an echo chamber, where they just find people who agree with them. Everything becomes underground, and there's nobody there replying to these horrible ideas, calling them idiots. And that's really what we have now. And just to add on to this, it's deliberate. I'm in that San Francisco tech scene. I've worked in tech my entire life. I know people whose job is literally to be the people who ban from Twitter and Facebook. And they're all very down with what they do. I mean, these are friends. I like them, but they are very hard left-wingers. I mean, there's even people who are in Antifa at night and then like taking reports for Facebook abuse during the day. And I mean, they're crazy.
Yeah. Well, and we do have really a big issue with the other side of it, is the level of arbitrariness that is involved. That it isn't like there's a set of rules that you can always say, oh, you did that, you're gonna get gone, right, on Twitter. It isn't that at all. It's very much, you wake up, something's shadow banned. You say China in certain contexts, or Tiananmen Square in certain contexts on Twitter, and it will be shadow banned. Or Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, in some cases. And on the other side of it is, I mean, we have had multiple accounts prior to Dragonchain. I've been involved where they banned us for totally arbitrary reasons, didn't make any sense, except that we did not have. I'll tell you the main reason that a lot of those things happen on Twitter, if you have a bot running for a new startup, is if you don't have any investors that Twitter has, right? At least in the old days, right? That if you shared investors, you were clean, you were good to go. If you were, totally outside and not a big thing, then they would ban you in an instant. And even this like Eternal for Dragonchain, that was banned, and they banned it a few times because it was quoting tweets. And one time it quoted a McAfee tweet that had a word in it. And it banned us, and we're like, oh, it's just quoting the tweets, right? And then later, they just turned it off, told us nothing when we asked multiple times, nothing, no response. It's like, okay,
yeah. Rivet has faced similar issues with Twitter ads, where like literally we are competing directly with, well, not directly, but in the same domain as AWS in their managed blockchain space. We're competing with Alchemy, who is, sponsored by a lot of those same folks who might have that sort of family ties type of thing going on in the background. And then Infura, who's sort of this old hat. They don't have to advertise at all because all the important references to them are already in the startup libraries for all the different stuff. But trying to get our name out there gets us flagged as, if you can believe it, financial services. And we are literally delivering RPC endpoints for blockchains. And it's just like, it kind of makes you wonder how much of it's bought and how much of it is purchased as opposed to bought, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my wife and I have been watching, I forget what it's called, but it's a series on like the food wars in the US, like Post and Kellogg and Hershey and all these people. And I see so many parallels to what's happening today, and like blockchain and censorship and companies just really, it's interesting to see history rhyming a bit like that.
Yeah. And by the way, none of this censorship in big tech would matter if we hadn't, if the world hadn't consolidated on Facebook and Twitter, and it's too centralized, right? It's like there are only a few of them, and they have too much power, right? Which is so the pendulum. Hopefully, there'll be more platforms. There'll be people just communicating other ways. I mean, Larry's working on a few of those right now.
Yep.
And we have ridiculous stories that I still can't believe how Wikipedia is run. And I mean I don't some of it I don't know whether to describe as censorship or just the the whole woke culture.
Corrupt. That's the one word for Wikipedia. Yeah. It's just pure corruption.
I agree.
The bots there are interesting. Larry, I know that you've dealt with a lot of stuff with Wikipedia, and if you don't want to talk about it, that's cool because it's all sort of it's like
I don't mind.
Much more of a treadmill for you. But I'd be very curious to get your take on how bots in those editing contexts kind of come into play in terms of making things more obscure or censoring or making information harder to surface.
I mean, there's different kinds of bots, and the first bots that came up on Wikipedia were useful. Like one of the first ones that I
just recognized Larry. Remember. Okay, wow. Okay, I knew your face. Okay, it took me a second. Wow. Okay, hey, cool. I'm sorry, starstruck for a second. Okay.
Well, thanks. One of the first bots that we that was run created a bunch of articles about U.S. towns, which is like pretty. That was very useful, and I think there was another bot that imported the contents of the Encyclopedia Britannica, but now of course there's all kinds of bots, and they've got a lot of rules about them. I think they even have to be registered or something. I don't know, but yeah, there are censor bots for sure that look for certain patterns, and I can't keep up with all of that stuff myself, but I know that they do exist and that they actually do a certain kind of auto moderation. It's really sad, frankly, because it used to be for many years actually the encyclopedia anybody could edit, and that was true of it, and they still call themselves that, but it's just so obviously wrong now. Yeah. It's sad. Not everybody can edit Wikipedia. In fact, you have to kowtow to the right people in advance. You have to get permission in advance for edits of any significant articles. If you want to go in on some little article that's established, like creating a whole new article is like that's almost out. You can try, but some obscure academic thing that nobody really cares about, you might be able to get away with editing that. But anything that matters, you can be banned just for touching the article, even if you're like making a spelling correction or something.
Wow.
So yeah, it's bad.
And I don't get that. Like, there's an entire culture, and I guarantee some of it is paid, because when we encountered this, that we'd had a page on a Dragonchain page on Wikipedia forever, right? We heard about Cardano getting attacked. That we're going to take it down because it's not what do you call it, significant, or whatever the term that they use is. It's not important enough to the world to keep this small amount of space on our world encyclopedia. And so they were going to remove it. And so he goes off and he talks to I don't know if he talks to Jimmy Whale. I don't know these people, right? And it's not touched, right? Why is that? He paid him. He's like, he's like, look, I donated, right? He's like, it's the donate where I donated. And
yeah, I don't think it's centralized in that way. It's a black box to me, but I mean, what I have been told many times by many different people is that basically you have to know the right people. There are certain Wikipedia editing firms that basically work on behalf of corporations and other organizations and make sure that articles in their areas of interest continue to reflect the point of view. And those people are pulling the strings. They know how to play the game. They know they are doing things behind the scenes that keep it running the way that it is. And basically, sure, you have to pay some of those people off. I'm sure.
That's what we encountered. We found out that you have to find certain of these people. Some of them are very open about it, but they'll say, now, do not repeat this anywhere, do not record this anywhere, blah, 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 because it actually violates the terms, supposedly. But they are basically taking money, and you have to find the right one to give money to. You have to give them the right amount of money, and you have to hope that they have the right friends to make something happen. And guess what? It typically doesn't. It failed in our case. We paid them, I don't know how much. It wasn't like a massive. We aren't going to pay a ton of money, but we tried it, and we recorded everything about it. So we should put it out. But I don't want to upset anyone's career as a Wikipedia editor or anything. But it's really nasty because that's all behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
So it's no longer editable, and it's no longer an encyclopedia. Other than that, doing good.
Yeah.
It's worrisome to me when you see subjects that have to do with things like propaganda, or have to do with educating yourself about how to understand media. That people are searching for, and they're probably getting Wikipedia if they're looking on their mobile device, and it's coming up right away, and it's saying stuff that seems almost tailor edited to the right moment, to where, like, if you look and see when the most recent edits were on some page related to what's the herd immunity concept. That was one that got a lot of edits right around the time a lot of people were saying, don't go look this up. This is not a concept that you need to be informing yourself on. Don't go down the rabbit hole. It was literally an article in New York Times about it. And people are trying to educate themselves from it. And to me, that's like, if you've got that kind of back alley censorship going on, it's kind of scary.
Yep. Yeah. And then that's why they need blockchain. So you could see, what independently prove that why did they take this sentence out or whatever. And the fact that you have that occurring is a very 1984-ish scenario, because now they can change reality on a whim.
I mean, they've got copies, and it would be unusual for even Wikipedia to remove like the whole edit history of an article. So they do have, they do have an edit history for everything. But the thing that is most 1984 along those lines is the so-called oversight ability. Which is the ability of people who have oversight permissions, which means you have to be pretty high up And you can actually go in and delete lines from the database, from the edit history forever. So basically memory hole.
And that's a Reddit-esque thing, right? The Reddit, whether it was the Donald or when the CEO of Reddit goes in and edits the database for content of members of a particular subreddit. And then they later, remove the subreddit, and there's no history retained of any of that entire reality.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I agree 100% that there needs to be independent, distributed copies, not just of Wikipedia, but basically of all encyclopedias. And basically it needs to be, all of this content needs to be shared according to a common standard, like RSS or Atom, but for encyclopedias. So that's actually what we're developing with the Encyclosphere. In fact, next week, or possibly the week after, I think it's going to be next week, we're going to have a little roundtable that I'm organizing, in the process of organizing, among different encyclopedias. So like Citizendium, Ballotpedia, a new one called Botipedia, which is extremely exciting. HandWiki, you probably haven't heard of them. Everypedia, that's the blockchain encyclopedia. Yeah, we're going to have a little conversation with those folks about, seeing how we can get them and other, encyclopedia publishers essentially to adopt a common standard for sharing their data, and that I think is the place to start.
Yep. Get something for standards, and so that people can start building what they need to build. Because I know you're already doing that's great. By the way, full circle, the question mentioned Tay at the end, and the interesting thing about that is we've talked about how bots are banning humans and using AI to ban. Look, how's Sean again? Didn't get a word in edgewise. Sorry, Sean. Maybe his audio problems again. But anyway, that the funny thing about Tay is that humans banned a bot, an AI. So that's an interesting thing too, right?
That's a Microsoft bot that started praising Hitler, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that poor thing.
It was hilarious, but
predictable outcome, man. I'm sorry, but come on.
Yeah. But it's like corporate. It's going to become a thing. At some point, people the bots will have rights, and we have to be careful about how we refer to them. Anyway,
we already see the question being asked a little bit with the patent office, right? Like denying a patent because it was an AI and it wasn't a human, which gives okay, like let's solve that problem next with AI. Let's meet those.
Yeah.
Those
that's gonna be a proxy then.
And ask again.
Yeah, it'll be a proxy then. Probably it'll be a human. Just I'm going to file a patent. I don't know.
That's what it is in this case. It's just it's an interesting exercise.
Yeah.
Well, if Tay was sentient, then we just made Roko's basilisk very angry with what we did to it. So like, it's something you want to be careful with, right? Because right now you can just shut it off. But if that were the right model and that were the right sort of line of code that historically over time is evolving into something that will be someday smarter than all of us, being aggressive with it is probably not a wise plan. I don't think that one's it. But
and that's another question altogether too. Like with to plugged in for a minute, it's who's censoring us? Is it bots or is it other humans? Is it part of our community saying no, this isn't what we want, or is it part of an opposing community or company? Hiring somebody to do it, that kind of thing.
I mean, I think we're at a point though where if a bot is censoring us, it's a human who still gave the bot its rules. We're not at a place where they're coming up with what's right or wrong on their own yet.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at the Google. I mean, what is known about the Google rules, which is very little, but that they're very heavily manipulated. Just the search, and you can look at it for several ways. I don't even want to get into because it's all crazy, but they definitely manipulate search results. So for political reasons and other. So,
I think there's a lucky phenomenon too. Like with AI researchers, they tend to be kind of like cryptographers. They don't want their smartest ideas weaponized against any one particular ideology quite right out of the gate. I hope that is as true as it seems on the surface, I guess. I know a few folks. My cousin is studying it right now, and I know he wouldn't want anything he's researching to be used to censor. And it kind of seems to be a sense I get about the field.
Right. All right, we're queued up to go to the next question. You guys all right with that? Year of the Dragon, blockchain-based social media. At what point of blocking and censoring would they be considered more of a publisher than a public square? And I'm no expert on these. I mean, the waiver given to social media and internet stuff based upon public commentary and responsibility, right? Legal responsibility for what's pushed. So if you're a publisher versus what a platform is that the other side of it?
Public square, or I don't know. The question says public square, but
yeah.
Publisher or platform is probably the difference.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's if the risk for some of the big tech platforms out there, at least the proposed risk for Congress, is that going to happen? Don't hold your breath, but that if they are subjectively censoring, if they are subjectively controlling the information, then they become classified as an entity with some legal risk in what is published. If they're letting, as an example, Twitter has had massive issues with child pornography, and typically they have, interestingly enough, I believe it was in 2016, that the people who reported this were banned, and the content remained.
Oh, that story.
And you have to think, how are they still operating? Number one, and how are the leaders still there that would have allowed that to happen? And how is that not in the press? Why was that never big news?
Well, because people on Twitter.
I've heard that. That's insane.
People on Twitter get a lot of their ideas for writing their news reports from Twitter. Of course, Twitter's not going to share that with journalists, right? Those kinds of scandals are going to stay away. But I think there's a more important point here. That publisher protection, to a large degree, kind of protects free speech. It's very easy to say that the precedent that existed before Section 230 was a really better ideal world where either nothing was moderated or everything was. But it actually set up this weird conundrum where, like, if you wanted to shut down pornography on your platform that was meant to discuss like recipes or the weather or world geography, that you couldn't do that without being deemed a publisher, and that the protection from civil liability made it so that you could do stuff like, okay, yes, this is a weather site, but we're not going to have your new weather forecast be an okay thing here because we don't want that on our site. And that was something that people thought was okay. But in this day and age, I think that some of these algorithms, that whether or not they're all that smart, have given those groups too much power over what they get out there. Again, it's made this standard a little bit more of a double-edged sword than it was before.
Yep. The legal protection makes sense that it exists. I mean, as someone who's operated a site that user content was posted immediately, and that's the key, it has to be, they press a button and the content is now public. Otherwise, they absolutely are a publisher. They're approving every post. But you absolutely need that. Sites could not function, and especially the smaller sites could never start because they need such a legal team from the beginning if they were liable for things that went up instantly, that there would be no such thing as a startup. You'd have to be funded with $10 million at the beginning to ever take off. Just for your legal protections. But I would say when they cross that line, if content is instantly posted, they cross that line into publisher the first time they censor something that is an opinion, that they as an organization are taking a stance on subjective matter and they're censoring one side of that opinion, you're a publisher.
And by the way, even beyond opinion, I would even say if they have a set and objective standard that they can say, look, here's a picture. We do not allow pornography. that is an objective standard because it could be there are the terms, and you get banned because you do this. So if you had objective standards and objective outcomes based upon those standards to say, if you post this, you get 3 warnings. If you post this, you get banned immediately. There would be no way anybody could say, okay, well, that wasn't legitimate. But the problem is they're not doing that at all. It's totally arbitrary. It's totally subjective. We've been attacked. Well, I say attacked. We've been encountered multiple times. And it's really funny because, they've banned some of our things before on various platforms arbitrarily. We go back to them. It's like, oh, it opens back up. We also have had issues where we report obvious and objective fraud. You look in the crypto space, especially in 2017, 2018, if you posted anything with a crypto handle, you post anything, you get tons of, oh, send 5 ETH here, and I got 10 back. You get that, and it's obvious fraud. And it's, educated people aren't falling for it anyway, so we report it. And I tell you, we probably had a 50-50 hit that most of the time, over 50% of the time, they just let it go. It's like, this does not affect, it's not against our terms or whatever. The other less than half the time, they would actually ban it. And they did improve over time, but it was really ridiculous because most of the time, it was not even just obvious fraud. It was obvious fraud with identity fraud involved, that they would, change one character in the handle name. They would have the entire thing set up for impersonation, so it looks like it's our account. And then they'd post something, and we would always turn them in, and they would only occasionally be banned. And yet they're banning political speech. So we went and we talked to Twitter, and we told them, look, in the very, very worst case, you guys should at least have tracking of these administrative actions. When you ban someone, it should be on chain. Here's what happened. Here's the data. Here's why they were banned. Here are the rules that it met up against. And you'd be safe, because whenever Congress finally does come, you would at least have, here's why that one person was banned. There's nothing. It was for a legitimate reason. The issue is they don't really want that because they want to ban people subjectively.
I wonder, though, how many gray area cases you run into. Like, let's say all those seem pretty clear cut, right? Like, those should go. But here's an interesting hypothetical. You're running a site called Debate the Weather, and someone wants to say, talk about a weather pattern that lasts more than 8 months. And somebody's like, nope, that's climate. Kick it off. And someone else is like, nope, the cutoff for climate is 1 year plus. And we'll test that one by taste. What happens when you try to ban that by a particularly specific public rule? It starts to get into opinion. Like, I feel like maybe
I think it wouldn't matter.
I
think if it was declared, then they would have to say anything over a year we don't accept, but anything under a year we do. And they might argue about it, and maybe they on the site would say, oh, let's change that to 6 months. And maybe everybody agrees, yeah, we have too many people posting 9-month weather patterns that we don't think are legitimate. So let's break it down to 3 months. And it's at least transparent and declared. It's objective. It doesn't matter.
That's what I was going to say. You're suggesting that there's clear rules.
Yeah.
And I feel like we could come up with a lot of counter cases for clear rules too. Like I could come up with one to react to that and say, like, well, what about this then? And I feel like maybe there's another better answer, like something more along the lines of federation, where people can select what they want to see as opposed to be banned for what they want to post.
And I can say that's what, like, how do I say on DIN, we have tons of those little edge cases that are very hard to figure out. But the great thing is we have a decentralized governance mechanism. So we can say, okay, we're looking at this data and here's a pattern we're seeing. We can bring it up to the governance board and say, we think this is a solution for it, changing the algorithm or putting a rule in. In fact, we've multiple times where we know that someone was attacking the economy, or we think, that they were attacking the economy, we would bring up the question of what is the effect? So if we determine that someone is doing this and we all agree this is happening, should they be banned? Should something else be turned off so that it's an objective governance and not just, it's a character, this one person should be banned or whatever else. And that's helpful because then you can at least get those edge cases laid out, and you can at least put it so that the entity itself does not have to. In fact, they can. The entity a lot of times will not vote on purpose, so that it's like, okay, it's purely community voting on this subject because we don't want to weigh in, right?
Yeah, and that's related to what I was going to say too. Speaking of DIN, is with the question being about like a publisher versus a public forum or a platform and that kind of thing. In all the cases that I've seen, the website, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, this is a monolithic single entity. And I'm not a lawyer, but it seems like, well, okay, you hear people say, well, you're in their house. They can do what they want because you're in their house. But then you have a platform like DIN where, it's not really just one person's house anymore. It's more like a neighborhood, or even the individual communities are like a neighborhood where it isn't all owned by one entity. It isn't all owned by one person. It's kind of self-owned. So how does that change the rules around how it's treated legally? I don't know the answer to that.
Hyper decentralization, right? How do you even have a law that directs anything against the owners of it?
Right. If it's a virtual city and you all own real estate in that virtual city, and each community is separately owned, how is that treated? I don't know. We might have to find out.
Yeah.
I'm whenever Section 230 comes up, one idea always springs to my mind, and I wonder why it hasn't been tried, or not very often anyway. Is the whole idea of a sort of randomized jury system. Why does and to a certain extent, this already happens on like Stack Overflow, for example, but that's very distributed. But the whole idea is, if something is really sensitive and you don't want to see it out there circulating very widely, why not just take a dozen people drawn at random from among trusted community members who have sufficient karma or whatever it is, and have them decide. They can even have a little chat or something like that, and they have a certain amount of time to make up their minds about the case. That always struck me as being a way for the companies to maintain their status as a platform rather than a publisher, because they actually are having the community be self-policing. So, and it's an obvious idea. I'm not the first person to have thought of it. So, yeah, I think the answer has to be that they want the control. Period.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's about what I was saying. You look at Zuckerberg or Twitter dude, and these guys want the power. You can tell there's a real personality disorder with the people who fund and create a lot of these companies. I think they build a platform like that, fantasizing about all the people they will one day have power over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and moreover, like, there's sort of a weird national security state element to this too. Like, was the guy who was the director of the CIA when Edward Snowden did his leaking, right? He is now no longer in government service, but he's like serving on the board of some company, or he's a commentator on CNN or whatever. Like, these people have all this power now, and you can't tell me that they're not using it, even if they're doing it unconsciously, sort of in favor of this worldview that says, all the power and privacy for the powerful, and none of it, and full exposure, and no free voice for you. Like, to me, that's what's going on already.
There's another piece to this, which is, look, this is, let's say these are platforms, and they maybe are improvements to just posting some random thoughts somewhere on the internet. That it's a way to build, let's say on Twitter, rather than making my, the funny thing is, why don't you just build your own Twitter, right? Which is a ridiculous concept itself. That, okay, the point of that is doesn't make sense, but the fact that if you don't like Donald Trump's tweets, you did not have to follow Donald Trump. In fact, there are even mechanisms in there where occasionally I will have someone I do follow who retweets some garbage. And I'm like, why is this on my timeline? I can at least say, no, I still want to follow this person, but I want fewer tweets from that person. And it doesn't work perfectly, but at least it's something. It helps a little bit, right? But I've even had friends that were reasonable people that they would say something about Trump, some tweet, and I'm like, well, why are you following him then? Why do you care, right? And why then does this? Let alone he's the president, the current president at the time, would be canceled on all of his social accounts is crazy to me, right? It's not like it's beaming into your phone if you don't want to hear it,
right? Yeah, there's mechanisms there to get rid of the noise you don't like.
Right.
Just take it upon yourself to get rid of the things from your life that you don't like to listen to.
Yeah,
that was there.
There's a lot of people out there who like have zero respect for human intelligence. I think like everybody else out there's dumb and fooled by this, and so we need to step in and make sure that all these dummies don't get the wrong idea. Like, I don't know, I never liked that idea. I guess I feel like people are smarter than that.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Next question. You guys good? All right. Jacob Wayne, do you think that the censorship in legacy social media institutions is a planned attack on personal freedoms, a social pressure that they feel they need to enforce, or a mega company's way of covering themselves from liabilities that other companies follow, or maybe something else? What do you guys think? Let me get these in my head real quick here.
I just like that the word legacy was used in front of social media institutions.
Yes. Okay. Planned attack on personal freedom, social pressure.
I would say social pressure. I mean, you got to understand here in the San Francisco Bay Area and how that is then shown in these social networks that operate here. The way they operate is exactly how it's like offline here. I mean, it really is. Everything is in tune. People from other places might find it a little weird, but the things that get people banned on these social networks, if you said them out loud out here, you would be met with gasps by these people. They really think like this all the time. It's not just a social network that functions that way. And they think anyone who doesn't think that way is just behind. So they're just trying to help everyone catch up to be as evolved as they are. It's a massive level of delusion. And where it gets so weird, and like when they banned Trump, one of the things I found so odd is I don't like Trump. I'm not a huge, my perfect candidate would not be anyone like Trump. But you know what? I don't want another adult telling me what I can't read. You know how creepy that is to have two adults and one of them say, you can't see what that adult wrote? It's creepy as hell. And they got to be looking at the people like children, like we're just idiots. And they're babysitting us. And I would find it more offensive if I was the most anti-Trump person in the world that they booted Trump off. But instead, these people are clapping. Oh, yeah, you treated me like a 4-year-old. Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Like, what the hell is wrong with you people?
Right. It's like they're having a swooning couch party together, and they're just like, oh, my God, what are people going to think when they read this and believe it's absolutely true without questioning it?
Yeah. The funny thing is, everybody knew it was coming. We didn't know when. It's like everybody knew that they were going to do it, and they were going to do it. I thought
they wait till he was out of office, man,
to make their damn point. And it's the same reason that the Donald disappeared from Reddit. Everybody knew it was coming. Nobody knew when. And when it came, it was still surprising how they did it, and how they even then banned where people were segmented off into little private Reddits, right? So there'd be these private subreddits that where it's like, okay, we brought this person in because they posted so much, and those got banned.
You chased them down. Yeah.
Did some Reddit staff go on there and like troll the members too?
Oh, the CEO did, and he actually went into the database and changed content, which is another legal question, because I had heard at the time that would set him up for pretty major liability and or issues if someone committed a murder and declared it on Reddit. They could now say, well, we've already seen that the CEO has admitted to changing the database, the actual content, the actual quotes of people posting to Reddit. What's to say he didn't change it in my case, right? it's this weird situation because
like what Larry was saying earlier about how even the changes with Wikipedia, you can go back and look at them, but how do you know that those changes, the history of it, as it's represented from a central database, how do you know that that's true? How do you know that that's real? That somebody didn't go and change, oh, you know what, it actually said something factually wrong, so we changed it. When in fact, it was something, you can't even tell anymore what it was.
Yeah, it's just somebody on a crusade against, Oxford commas or something, or, if it's really some kind of major important change.
Yeah. And when it comes up, I mean, all those things become the issues where, like say, without saying the full story here, where I had a friend who had a family member that was injured by a news carrier, basically someone delivering papers. That paper then actually wrote in a story that it was the fault of the people that were injured when it was really their person's fault. And it's like there's a legal reason that you can't do that. You can't falsify info publicly, in that position. And yet that's what Reddit was doing. That's what, and it wasn't a case where they were maybe definitely going to get sued, but I've been kind of surprised that there hasn't been a class action yet.
I sort of feel like, just going back to the regular question, or the question we started with here, there's a big yes and here. Like, we can find examples of all of these things. And then, even more, it's sort of just like this plus this with chaotic self-organizing system doing the same thing by accident, sort of Wealth of Kitchen style. But,
I would bet it's more cultural. I mean, I bet that Zuckerberg and Jack would get along, at least politically. I don't know whether they'd hang out, but they, that they agree politically, and their people that they hire agree politically. So I don't know that it's coordinated between them.
A weird dinner party, wouldn't it?
Well, you're talking about bubble. Maybe that's a bubble in itself. Like Ross was saying, that's just how it is in the geographical area where the overlords live, right? That's just how that's normal.
Yeah.
We find it so shocking that, the CEO of Reddit would edit a post made by someone else on the Donald subreddit, but you're talking with people where if you walk by a car that had a bumper sticker for Donald Trump, they would think it's okay to throw a rocket in and break the window. I mean, you can do anything to those people and it's okay.
Yeah. And that's bad. That's cultural. That's not even just big tech. That's bad, right? Stuff going on right now.
But you have to consider that at certain levels of society, among professors and activists and big NGOs, they plan a lot about how they want society to evolve, and they meet every so often in places and talk about how they can further execute their plans and so forth. And people like Jack Dorsey are, they're superstars in those groups because they are the people who can carry out their schemes. In academia, there are not a few Stalinists, even a few who declare themselves to be, and who are 100% okay with shutting up, misinformation. And that's like really societally important. And we've come to broken an important barrier in the last few years now that it's actually okay to use maybe not government in the United States, but everything else can be used to shut up the regressive forces, the regressive voices in society. So this is how they think. So I agree that there's a little bit of everything. I mean, there's different levels and different layers of explanations to be given on, about such problems.
Yep.
It's definitely a good point that you can't dismiss those big planned types of things either. Like, there is a lot of chaos organizing itself, but there's also, Klaus Schwab being a Bond villain at the World Economic Forum.
Sure.
Somebody say Bilderberg.
Yeah, well, and I think too, if you were to go 5 years ago, people, or even 10 years ago, especially, people would It's like, no, they don't plan that stuff. Now everybody, I think, assumes there's some level of that in the world. So, it
was so weird when I heard mainstream news use the term deep state and not like as a joke or anything.
Yeah.
It was. Did I just hear that? Are they talking
when the
about
president tweeted that was like, it was like, whoa.
Who's the wise guy that's censoring me and knocking me off the internet constantly for this show that I was ridiculously excited about?
Well, we will have lightning round at least, Sean, if you're all right with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you guys want to go ahead and give intro, give extra, give plug whatever you want to do of what's going on in the coming week, and then we'll do lightning round right after that, right? So, Greg, what's happening?
Wait, for me?
Yeah.
Okay. So right now, Rivet is just doing its usual thing. We're actually finishing up with a really neat set of projects. So one is, and it's going to be sort of coming out more available for people soon to check out, called PlugF, which is a pluggable extension for Geth, which you can go out and contribute to from an open source side of things. So if you want Geth to do something that's not in the standard library, but you don't want to fork Geth, now there's going to be a way that you can use Go plugins to get in there and play with that. So that's going to be something we're going to be talking about. And then we're also going to be announcing another big thing called Cardinal, which is going to allow us to expand to a lot of different chains. We're calling it a parachain concept. So
wow.
It's going to be a really neat piece of infrastructure. So we're excited to reveal it.
Those are both cool. Dave. Muted. Oh, he politely muted, but he forgot to unmute.
All right, yeah. So this week on DIN, we have our app is out in the Android App Store. That's pretty awesome. I've been waiting for that for a long time. It's still coming down the pipe for Apple's App Store whenever they get done with it. But if you can't find it on there, go to DIN Social and go to the DIN layer. You don't even need an account or anything. You can just navigate to the layer. And it's probably the top post up there right now. But it has the direct link to the Play Store. And so, yeah, anybody can get the app, and it's hopefully a smoother experience for anybody that was having issues with it before. So that's what's new over there.
Nice. Sean.
I got some stuff in the works. Me and Kifs are thinking about building something really big, which I might actually need some of you guys to help me on. Before the whole pandemic and everything started, I was about to start a charity, and that really got thrown out the window with everything. But I don't know, thinking about getting that going again, because I really wanted to get that started and had a lot of plans for it. That's about it. Follow me and all that stuff.
Right on. Ross.
Yeah.
What's new?
Minutes before coming on here, actually, I published an exclusive report I've been working on for like the last week. I found out that secretly going on in Texas, there's been private meetings between the big oil Texas executives and crypto miners. They're setting up something that will change the entire game. They are going to be using the excess natural gas that is expelled from the Texas oil wells just from the drilling for oil is going to power these mobile cryptocurrency mines. Right now, that gas is just being burnt off. It's already being used for nothing, and it's going to be taken over by miners. And so now the oil companies are going to be making a little money off these mines, and the miners are going to be getting energy at a lower cost than ever before. And they get unplugged from the grid that they're currently into, meaning our carbon footprint is going to be reduced. This is going to change everything, and the goal is to make up the entire hash rate lost from China banning cryptocurrency, and it looks like they're going to do it. Exclusive report, globalcryptopress.com, Google News, Apple News. Check it out.
Yeah, we're actually, that was like an edict that was put out by the governor. We're every county is as to welcome crypto miners with open arms, lower electric rates, jobs, all that.
That's amazing.
Anything connected with crypto is really, really huge here now. And I don't know if you know this, but Consensus has been moved. It is no longer in New York City for the first time in ever. It is going to be held in Austin.
Where in Texas are you, Sean?
Austin.
By Austin, Central Texas.
Okay. Wow. Man, I may be out there soon.
Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
Permanently.
Yeah, likewise.
it's a huge deal because with all the stuff that's going on in New York, there's people that are supposed to speak at consensus that wouldn't have been allowed in the building because of the restrictions.
We didn't even get into that stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's super neat.
That's all. That's a good story. Larry, what is new?
Yeah, well, a couple of weeks ago, the Knowledge Standards Foundation, which is an organization I started last fall, did our first press release. And so some of our news covered there. One thing I'm excited about is called Mini Feed. So basically, we're making a WordPress plugin that converts a regular WordPress blog into a social media platform, and then puts out your feed of like 280 character posts or whatever you want on RSS. And version 2 is going to happen soon, like within like a couple of months. And you'll be able to follow people. You'll be able to include their stuff in your feed. And it will be a truly, truly decentralized social media network, not a platform. You'll own your own platform. All right. So that's how it should be. And you'll own your own data. We're also going to incorporate DID web, cell phone identity standards there. But not centralized version of that. You actually publish your own public key on your own domain, and that's going to be where you control your stuff. And so we're going to try to do that. The other thing that we announced is a seminar called The Technology of Decentralization. So we are now in the middle of the first week of the seminar, and we just basically talked about what's wrong with the internet, essentially. How did it get this bad, and how did it start, and what have we lost? Questions like that. Next week, or possibly the week after, we're going to be talking about encyclopedias, essentially. I already mentioned that we're going to invite a number of speakers from a number of encyclopedias, and we'll be asking basically, how do we create a system, and how do we get them to support a system where people can access all encyclopedic content from within a single open source software platform. Actually, we want to make like a white label open source encyclopedia reader, which people can then rebrand however they want, use everywhere, kind of like a blog reader, but for encyclopedias. So
cool.
That's awesome. That's super cool, man.
Very good.
Neat stuff. Big fan of that work.
Okay, so now we'll do lightning round. We'll go straight down. Everybody gives no more than one sentence answer. You can't go back. You can't respond after someone else. You can pass. We'll go what? You think 15-minute mark? We're at 103 right now. Is that good? Something like that? Okay. All right. Cryptocurrency asks, do you think Facebook and Instagram have the right to block law-abiding citizens from their platform? What outside of breaking the law should blockchain cryptos censor, if anything? What's the line? Greg, we'll go straight in.
I don't think that, in every case, Facebook and Instagram have an absolute right to block law-abiding citizens from their platforms, because in some cases they're being pressured by the government and they're actually state actors. And what outside of breaking the law should blockchain / cryptos censor, if anything? What's the line? I say the line is yes and, because cryptos can be open source, they can be copied, and if you don't like what you're seeing on one, you really can go to another, and nobody's going to put up barriers to entry.
All right, there you go.
What's the line? I think the line is subjective, depending on the community that you're in, and that's who should be deciding where the line is.
All right, Larry.
I'm inclined to think they do have the right, strictly speaking, to block law-abiding citizens, ones who are making true nuisances of themselves, why not? I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Ross?
I think, yeah, obviously they do have the legal right. Ideally, people should be able to know if they're breaking the rule before they post something. It should be clear cut as that. Where the line actually is, for me personally, my perfect internet is really close to anarchy, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask.
Yes. John? Muted. Oh.
You're still muted.
You're muted.
Yeah, I know.
There you go.
I don't think they have the right to at all. If they're going to like get the tax benefits or protections, they have to be completely open and allow everybody on. If they're not going to, and they're going to be held accountable for stuff that's on their platform, then yeah. But if they're not held accountable, then they don't have the right to kick anyone or to stop anyone.
Okay. And I'll say, I think the question includes the term law-abiding citizen. So I'm assuming they mean someone who is not posting something illegal, that are really bad stuff or anything else. So I generally don't think they should, but legally, I'm not an expert, and I don't understand that 230 and everything else that in all truth. So there's somewhere in the middle, but I think people should just leave those platforms, generally. Okay, next, Angel Breaker. How could the terms of use be converted to, for instance, a smart contract, transparently blocking, and if repeated, they could ban a person for limited time without the accusation of censorship? Greg.
Okay, I would say that terms can be converted into governance, and you can set up any kind of community you want. The one-size-fits-all boilerplate contract that says you take these terms and accept them 100%. It doesn't have to be the way of the world anymore. And I think there's a lot of potential out there to do a lot of different things that serve a lot of different communities.
Yep. Dave.
I think I would have a hard time figuring out how to measure by the numbers and put into a smart contract what constitutes violating some of the terms of use. But a smart contract could definitely be written to where once enough, for example, governance votes on a certain issue has been submitted, that it will automatically execute the action that the community has given insight onto.
Yep. Larry.
I really don't know. Perhaps if the smart contract were written in such a way that the decision were made by representative members of the community, I really don't know.
Yes. Ross.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of having with Larry on that. I don't see how it really works. You need. It sounds like they think a smart contract could be programmed to automatically enforce these things itself. Like it'll detect a banned word, and then the smart contract will kick in and ban that person. There's ways around all of that. You want to ban swear words, so it's going to do sh1t. It's going to be turned over where it has to get flagged by another person, and it's going to have to be reviewed by other people. Closest thing you can do it is community governance.
Okay, Sean.
Yeah, I don't think so. Just like everyone said, you can't. It boils down to so much subjectivity. What's pornography? What's art? You could be doing a video with, a Van Gogh behind you, which shows a boob, floating in the air, and you're banned. It doesn't. No, I don't think so.
Okay, and I'll tell you, this is generally the point of DEN that you can't do black and white, but you can point it to humans as long as they aren't arbitrarily, people sitting in an ivory tower. If they are the people that make up that community, then they can all weigh in. So theoretically, you could say, I'm going to in fact, we have this in there. I'm going to block this, so I don't see it anymore. So I'm happy. Now Dave blocks it. He doesn't see anymore. He's happy. If enough people in the community block it, that person's auto banned, right? And it actually works. And we've seen it work. And we've seen it where the numbers were not adjusted well, and it was too quick to ban someone, but it does work, and it's a way that's a very flexible human-based result, right? So the smart contracts working with governance. Anyway, sorry, that wasn't really very fast for me. Next question. Let's see here.
That's the last one.
That's the last one. We made it through all of them. Okay. And by the way, the people in the lightning round don't get credited for the topics and questions. It's just our way to get through them all. I'd like to go in. In fact, Greg's really good about answering questions in Den, which I would love to do. I haven't usually had the time to do it, but so at least everybody can get an answer. So that's great. Is that the first time we've made it through all the questions? Maybe.
No, we did last week too.
Second time, I think.
Did we?
I think lightning round has been getting us through that. Yeah.
It took us 30 minutes last time. But
yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, that's good.
That was
Okay.
lightning.
All right. So does anyone have anything else they need to cover last minute? We have a couple minutes left.
Get session.
Yeah, if you want to join the seminar that I talked about, you'd be welcome. It's very interesting, in my humble opinion. You can sign up on encyclosphere.org.
Okay.
It's very relevant to a lot of crypto stuff.
And we'll put the link either in the comments or the description or somewhere. So, okay. All right.
I would I would like to toss in one last thing. Go into this channel in Den, go into this thread, talk about it. Let's keep this conversation going because we definitely can't cover in an hour all the things there are to cover about this. And it's worth keeping this conversation moving.
Right.
Greg, I'm going to commit to that too. I'm going to jump in there and answer questions every week. And even if I'm not on the show.
And there is a privacy layer that I unfortunately do not have any lot in. I don't know how that happened. But
I have too much, so we can talk about divvying that up a little bit too.
And there's a good place to comment about a lot of this stuff on Den outside of the Roundtable layer as well. So do go in and add some topics and questions for next week. I don't know what the theme is. It'll be announced soon if it isn't already. And also make sure that you help us vote the questions and topics up that you want to hear the answers to. And make sure you like, comment, share everything else on this episode wherever you are watching it. So thanks a bunch.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best.
Adaptable, raw capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.